This is the
Okay,
moderator. I can do that, and I will start the recording.
thank you.
This meeting is being recorded.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Dental Board of California Quarterly Board Meeting. My name is Joanne Pacheco, and I am the president of the board. Today is Friday, November 19th, 2021. This board meeting is being held via WebEx. In accordance with Government Code Section 11133, this meeting will be held by teleconference with no physical locations. For all those who wish to participate, please log on to the WebEx website provided on the posted agenda for this meeting. Instructions to connect to the meeting are provided on the agenda. The preferred audio connection is via telephone conference and not the microphone and speakers on your computer. The phone number and access code will be provided as part of your connection to the meeting. Since this meeting is being conducted via WebEx, I will ask all board members and speakers to announce themselves by name before speaking for clarity of the official record. All board members are able to unmute themselves to speak during the meeting. Please place yourself back on mute when not speaking to reduce background noise for all participants. When making a motion, please use the raised hand feature to be called upon and then verbally state your motion or second so staff can identify the motion and the second for the meeting record. During a discussion on an agenda item, please use the raise hand feature if you want to speak, and I will call on you. Following such online meeting etiquette will assure the best audio quality for everyone. During each call for comments from board members and speakers, we will ensure that all comments that can be accommodated are heard before proceeding with the agenda. The board will be taking a 15-minute break in the morning and a 30-minute lunch break, estimated to occur between noon to 12:30 p.m., and another 15-minute break following in the afternoon. This is an official business meeting of the Dental Board of California. The board welcomes public comments on any item on the agenda, and it is the board's intent to ask for public comments prior to the board taking action on any agenda item. The DCA moderator will explain the process for providing public comment today shortly. When called upon, the moderator will unmute the microphone of the individual, and they will have 2 minutes to make public comment. The moderator will audibly announce when 30 seconds remain to conclude the public comment. After the 2 minutes have lapsed, the individual will be placed back on mute. Only one public comment per agenda item is allowed per attendee. Depending on the number of people who would like to testify on a particular agenda item, a total time limit may be imposed. We ask all speakers to please stay on topic and not repeat testimony already provided. If you agree with the testimony already provided, please just state your name and that you are in support of any comments previously provided. I would now like to ask the DCA moderator to please explain how public comments will be taken during the WebEx meeting.
Thank you. This is the moderator of the meeting. To facilitate public comment, we will be utilizing the WebEx question and answer feature, which you will hear me refer to as the Q&A. When the board reaches a point in the agenda at which public comment is appropriate, the Q&A feature will be turned on, and members of the public can indicate they would like to make a comment by inserting the phrase, "I would like to make a comment," or simply the word "comment" into the question box. This is typically located in the lower right corner of your screen. And if you need to access that box, you can click on the icon that looks like a question mark inside of a square. I will then call on the individual and mute their microphone. Each individual will have 2 minutes to make their comments, and at the conclusion of the 2 minutes, the individual's microphone will be muted and we will move on to the next member of the public who has a comment. I will be providing a 30-second reminder when your time is about to expire. Please note that the Q&A feature is being used only as a means for the members of the public to represent that they would like to make a verbal comment. This is not a means to ask questions of the moderator or members of the board. Such inquiries submitted using this feature will not be answered. When making your comment, please make sure the comment is directed at the host in the drop-down. While you are free to express criticism or negative views, for the sake of the members of the public participating on the call, please do not use profane language when making public comments to the board. I will provide a brief reminder of this approach at the start of the public comment items. And finally, when board members or senior staff are not speaking, I would like to remind them to mute their microphone. If I detect background noise during the meeting as a result of unmuted microphones, I will interject with a brief friendly reminder to mute your microphone, or if it's not an opportune time to do so, I may simply mute your microphone myself. And with that, I will turn it back over to President Pacheco.
Thank you. I would like to call the meeting to order and ask the board secretary to please call the roll.
Thank you and good morning. This is Dr. Alan Felsenfeld, board secretary, and I will now call the roll. Ms. Burton, are you here yet?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Good. Burton is here. Chan.
Chan here.
Chan is present. Felsenfeld is present. Lareen.
Lareen here.
Lareen is present. Mackenzie.
Mackenzie's here.
Mackenzie present. Medina.
Medina here.
Medina present. Mendoza.
Mendoza here.
Mendoza present. Molina.
Molina here.
Molina present. Montel.
Montel here.
Montel present. Morrow. Dr. Morrow? Did we lose him?
Dr. Morrow, you are muted. I do see that he is still connected.
All right, I'll come back to him in just a moment. We'll circle back, as we say. Ms. Loggy?
Loggy present.
Loggy present. Pacheco?
Pacheco present.
Pacheco present. Stewart?
Stewart present.
Stewart present. Yu? Dr. Yu? All right.
You present. Can you
Yu
hear me?
Present. Thank you. Dr. Morrow, can you hear me okay? Well, we see him on the screen. We know that he was present earlier, so we have a quorum, Madam President.
Thank you. Now, before we get started, I would like you to make note that agenda item 26 will be discussed before agenda item 24.
Okay.
But now I'd like to move on to agenda item 19, President's Report on Closed Session Items. The board has voted to appoint an interim executive officer effective upon the retirement date of the current executive officer. Upon satisfaction of the oath of office and fingerprint clearance until the position is filled, an announcement regarding who the appointed person is will be made after approval is received from the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs. I would also like to report a decision for issuance of new licenses to replace canceled licenses. They were approved for the following doctors: SC, JG, and RS. Are there any board member comments? Seeing none, are there any public comments? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
This is the moderator. I've opened the Q&A panel. If you'd like to make a comment, please click on that Q&A icon, type comment, or I would like to make a comment into the text field and submit that to our panelists. And not seeing any requests at this time. Would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, please.
It is closed.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item 20, Dental Assisting Council, the DAC, meeting report. I will ask Jerry Fowler, Vice Chair of the Dental Assisting Council, to present this agenda item.
Good morning. My name is Jerry Fowler, and I'm Vice Chair of the Dental Assisting Council. I will be presenting the DAC meeting report for yesterday, November 18th, 2021. The meeting minutes for the August 19th, 2021 DAC meeting were approved with no revisions. The motion was passed and carried. Agenda item 4, update on dental assisting educational program and course applications and reevaluations, was presented by Tina Valerie, Chief of Licensing Administration. Agenda item 5, update regarding council member vacancies and recruitment, was presented by Executive Officer Fisher. Ms. Melinda Cazares and Ms. Michelle Jawad were regrettably gave their resignations, but there will be a recruitment notice for 2 RDAs employed clinically in a private dental practice, public safety net, or dental health care clinic posting on the board website. Agenda item 6, update on dental assisting exam statistics, and agenda item 7, update on dental assisting licensing statistics, was given by Ms. Tina Valerie. Agenda item 8, presentation by the Department of Consumer Affairs, Office of Professional Examination Services, OPES, regarding RDA-EF Occupational Analysis, that was given by OPS Representative Karen Akasic. This is item number 20A on your meeting agenda. Karen explained that the occupational analysis is typically done every 5 years. The purpose of the RDA-EF occupational analysis is to define practice in terms of critical tasks that the RDA-EF must be able to perform safely and competently at the time that they're licensed. The results of the OA provided a description of practice for the RDA-EF profession and the basis for constructing a valid and legal defensible RDA-EF written examination. In June of 2021, OPS sent an email to 557 actively practicing RDA-EFs, inviting them to complete the online occupational analysis questionnaire. A total of 212 RDA-EFs, or approximately 38.1% of the RDA-EFs who received the email invitation, responded to the OA questionnaire. The final number of respondents included in the data analysis was 119, or 21.4%, and that was due to the elimination of those who indicated that they were not currently holding a license and those that contained a large portion of incomplete responses on the survey. OPES test specialists then performed data analysis of the task ratings obtained from the OA. The task frequency and important ratings were combined to derive an overall criticality index for each task statement. After the data was analyzed, OPS conducted a third workshop with subject matter experts in August of 2021 to determine that all knowledge statements were critical for safe and competent entry-level performance as an RDA-EF in California. The subject matter experts then determined the final weights for the RDA-EF written examination outline. The new examination outline was structured into 4 content areas weighted relative to the other content areas, and this is on page 32 of your meeting notes. Preliminary patient evaluations was 25%, treatment procedures 57%, health and safety 8%, and laws and regulations 10%. OPES recommended to increase the number of 50 currently scorable and 10 pre-test questions to 100 scorable and 25 pre-test questions. They recommended increasing the exam completion time from the current 60 minutes to 150 minutes, which is 2.5 hours. Agenda item 9, which is 20B on your meeting agenda. Update regarding RDA-EF licensure requirements and administration of the new RDA-EF written examination that was presented by Sarah Wallace, Assistant Executive Officer. Mrs. Wallace reported that Senate Bill SB 607 was signed by Governor Newsom on September 28, 2021, and will become effective on January 1st, 2022. This bill removes the clinical and/or practical exam requirements for the RDAEF licensure exams, leaving only a written exam for RDAEF licensure. Effective January 2022, the Dental Board of California may grant an RDAEF license to a person who submits written evidence satisfactory to the board all the following eligibility requirements. Current licensure, number one, current licensure as a RDA or completion of requirements for licensure as an RDA. Number two, successful completion of board-approved course in the application of Pitt and Fishers sealants. Number three, successful completion of board-approved RDA-EF program. Number four, successful passage of a written examination administered by the board. Number five, submission of fingerprint clearances from both the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The new RDA-EF written examination will be launched January 1st, 2022, and it will incorporate additional content that measures competencies related to cord retraction and final impression, which were previously measured by the practical and clinical RDA-EF examinations. RDA-EF applicants who have already taken and passed the current RDA-EF written examination will not be required to take the new exam. The board continues to accept and process applications for RDA-EF licensure. Applicants who submit complete applications will be issued eligibility to take the current RDA-EF written examination, but they will not be issued a license until after January 1st, 2022. Those who currently have an application on file with the board for RDA-EF licensure will be, number one, issued refunds for the practical and clinical examination fees, which are $500, to those who have paid and have not taken the examination. Refunds were processed mid-October, and they will receive their funds within 8 to 10 weeks. Number two, beginning January 3rd, 2022, the board will begin issuing licenses to applicants who have successfully met all licensure requirements. Effective January 1st, 2022, applicants for the RDA-EF licensure will be required to take the new RDA-EF written examination. Candidates who have failed the current RDA-EF written exam will be required to take the new RDA-EF written exam after January 1st, 2022. Examination scores for the new RDA-EF written exam will be held pending evaluation of examination performance. The board anticipates having the results released by mid-February 2022. Agenda item 10, discussion and possible action regarding legislation proposal to amend Business and Professions Code sections 1750.2, 1750.4, and 1752.1 to specify time limits for acceptance of course certifications for OA permit and DSA permit applications, and clarify board-approved course requirements for RDA applicants. This was presented by Ms. Wallace. Action was taken to recommend to the board a legislative proposal to amend BPC Section 1750.2, 1750.4, and 1752.1 to clarify the RDA, OA, and DSA course completion requirements for license and permit application. The motion was passed and carried. Agenda item 11, discussion and possible action requiring RDA-EF administration of local anesthesia and nitrous oxide, was presented by Ms. Wallace. Action was taken to appoint a 2-member committee, which included DAC members Jerry Fowler and Tracy Reed Espinoza, to discuss specific issues to be studied and create relevant survey questions to report back to the council in February 2022. The motion was passed and carried. Agenda item 12, discussion and possible action regarding administration of written examinations in different languages, was presented by Ms. Wallace. And finally, agenda item 13, Election of 2022 Council Chair and Vice Chair was presented by Karen Fisher, Executive Officer. Nominations were taken and action was taken to appoint Jerry Fowler as Chair and Tracy Reed Espinoza as Vice Chair of the 2022 Dental Assistant Council. Their term begins January 1st, 2022. That concludes my report. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fowler. Are there any board member comments regarding her report? Please use the raised hand feature. Seeing none, are there any public comments regarding the report? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
This is the moderator. We've opened the Q&A panel. If you have a comment on this presented item, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text field, and submit that to our panelists. And seeing no requests at this time, would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, please.
Oh, my apologies. We had one pop in right as I was getting ready to close it. Comment from an individual identified as HL. I have sent a request to unmute your microphone. You will need to click on the unmute me button that pops up on your side. As a reminder, you'll have 2 minutes.
Yes, hi, this is Dr. Hun Lei. I just have a question regarding the RDAEF data. Right now, you have 2 categories, RDAEF1 and RDAEF2. Is there any plan to encourage the EF1 to become EF2? Thank you.
And it looks like that is our only request for comment. Would you like me to now close the panel?
Yes, please.
It is closed.
Thank you. Is there a motion and a second to approve the RDAEF occupational analysis? Please use the raised hand feature to be called upon and then verbally state your motion or second. Ms. McKenzie.
This is Mackenzie. I so move.
And I see Dr. Loren.
And I'll second that motion.
Thank you. So we have a motion to approve the RDAEF occupational analysis, Mackenzie and Loren. Are there any public comments? DC moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
And I've again opened that Q&A panel. If you'd like to make a comment on the motion presented, please click on that Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text field, and submit that to our panelists. And not seeing any other requests for comment, would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, please.
It is closed.
Thank you. Board Secretary, please call the roll and record the votes for this agenda item.
This is Board Secretary Felsenfeld. We are now voting on a motion to approve the RDAEF occupational analysis. Burton. Ms. Burton?
I'm sorry, Dr. Felsenfeld, this is Executive Officer Fisher. We have a couple of board members that are still having connection problems. So if they don't respond, please move on.
Thank you, I will. I'll circle back, give her one more chance at the end. Dr. Chan?
Chan, yes.
Chan, yes. Felsenfeld, yes. Lareen?
Lareen, aye.
Lareen, aye. Mackenzie?
Kenzie, yes.
Kenzie, yes. Medina.
Medina, yes.
Medina, yes. Mendoza.
Mendoza, aye.
Mendoza, yes. Molina.
Molina, I.
Molina, yes. Montel.
Montel, I.
Montel, yes. Morrow.
Morrow, yes.
Morrow, yes. Olagi.
Olagi, yes.
Olagi, yes. Pacheco.
Pacheco, I.
Pacheco, yes. Stewart.
Stewart, yes.
Stewart, yes. You,
Yes.
yes. Ms. Burton, are you with us? We do have a unanimous vote at this point. The motion passes.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item 21, discussion and possible action on the draft report of the California State Legislature regarding findings relevant to inform dental anesthesia and sedation standards as required by Senate Bill 501, Glacier, Chapter 929, Statutes of 2018, and Business and Professions Code Section 1601.4, Subdivision A2. I'm going to ask Dr. Alan Felsenfeld, Anesthesia Committee Chair, to present this agenda item.
Thank you, Ms. Pacheco.
And I'm sorry to interrupt. If we could just pause for 1 minute to see if we can get this one board member back on. Just stay tuned and we'll be right back. Dr. Felsenfeld, why don't you go ahead with your presentation and staff will continue behind the scenes to try to reconnect Member Burton.
Thank you. I'll be happy to do that. Good morning again. The Anesthesia Committee met on September 30th. A quorum was established and the previous meeting minutes were approved. There was only one item of business before the committee. As required by SB 501, the Dental Board of California was tasked with providing a report back to the legislature by 1/1/22, 6 weeks, regarding an update of the available data on adverse events related to deep sedation and general anesthesia, moderate sedation, and minimal sedation in dentistry, as well as a review of the relevant professional guidelines, recommendations, or best practices for the provision of dental anesthesia and sedation care. Accordingly, the draft report to the legislature on anesthesia was reviewed. There were formatting and syntax issues which were addressed, but there were no substantive changes to the report. A motion to accept the suggested changes and send it to staff to complete and move it to the full board was made, seconded, and approved. The meeting was adjourned, and you now have the report before you for your consideration. And that completes my report, Ms. Pacheco.
Thank you. Is there any board member discussion? Please use the raised hand feature. Dr. Chan.
This is Steve Chan. I'd like to move the motion, but is it appropriate to make a comment now, or should I wait for comments?
I believe now would be the time to make a comment.
As a past member of this committee and past chair for the last 6 years, this represents a lot of work, a lot of discovery, and a lot of digestion. 6 years of materials to understand what this universe looks like. It tells us where we are now, but will it continue to evolve? Yes. Will we continue to learn? Yes. Will we continue to monitor this? Absolutely, we will. Thank you.
And do we have a second on that motion? Dr. Yu.
You second.
Thank you. So the motion is to review, discuss, and provide comments on the report to California State Legislature regarding findings relevant to inform dental anesthesia and sedation standards, and direct staff to finalize the report and submit the final report to the California State Legislature before the January 1, 2022 deadline.
Madam President. Madam
Yes.
President, Dr. Felsenfeld.
Yes.
Actually, the report has been gone to staff. It has been finalized. We are just looking to see if there are any comments coming today from the full board. I would like to, with Dr. Chan's permission, I would like to suggest language that might be a little more pertinent to what we're doing this morning. The recommendation will be to approve the SB 501 report as reviewed by the board today and submit it to the California State Legislature before January 1st, 2022.
Okay, thank you.
And President Pacheco, before you move on, I also wanted to make note that the board did receive comments from AAOMS the day before the meeting. So
I have that, Ms. Fisher. If you'd like to continue, I have that.
Yeah, please.
All right, I was going to add that as well. There was a letter that came in from the AMAS, the American Association of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgeons, on Wednesday late. And due to the late submission of the AMAS November 17th concern letter, we recommend that board staff review the adverse event reports received by the board to determine whether those records provide any additional information that may address AMAS concerns, and report back to this board at its meeting in February that either no supplement to the report is necessary or provide a draft supplement to the board for review and approval and submission to the California State Legislature at that time. It was referred back up.
Thank you for your explanation. Are there any public comments? DC moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
This is the moderator. We've opened the Q&A panel. If anyone would like to make a comment on this item, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text field, and submit that to our panelists. And our first request for comment comes from Brian Hong. Brian, I've sent a request to unmute your microphone. As a reminder, you will have 2 minutes.
Hello, this is Brian Huang. I'm a dentist anesthesiologist. Just like to make a comment. I did read the review. It's just interesting that the adverse event wasn't separated by provider, anesthesia provider, and I think it really should be looked into as well. And that's all I have.
Thank you. And our next comment comes from Dr. Bruce Witcher. Dr. Witcher, I've sent a request to unmute your microphone.
Thank
you. Thank you. I'll try to keep this brief. Some of you may have read some comments that I submitted to the anesthesia committee a couple of months ago. And so I just want to expand on those a little bit. Having some discussion, and I'm speaking as a stakeholder, individual licensee, not representing any organization in particular. I did have some discussions with stakeholders and other interested parties, and they were somewhat frustrated by the lack of clinical details of the adverse outcomes. And I think the thing to understand here is the purpose of this report. As a licensing board report, most of the information included is reporting data collected for enforcement actions. It was never intended as a clinical research document. And as such, these reports are subject to records retention and disclosure policies of the board, and this may conflict with some data collection. It might be useful to have clinical data if you want to develop hypotheses about the mechanism and prevention of anesthetic injury. However, this is a retrospective review, and you cannot use a retrospective review to test hypotheses. So I think people just need to understand what this report really is and what its limitations are. It was never intended as a research project. It's more reporting outcomes, which is useful information in itself. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next comment comes from Gary Cooper. Gary, I see you've got two connections. I'm going to try the first connection that I see and send you a request to unmute.
I am unmuted. Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Gary Cooper, representing Cal Amos, with the sponsor of SB 501. I am very happy that Dr. Felsenfeld has suggested incorporating the Amos letter into the report. The Amos letter basically delineated three concerns that we had, and hopefully they will be addressed. One of them is the lack of information talking about the education and the training received by the individual. They only talked about the permit that has been held. The second bit of information we need is the sedation level. It says intended level, but it doesn't specifically say the actual level that was of sedation used. And the third area of concern was, as Dr. Felsenfeld pointed out, this did come from Amos, and Amos does have a standard of care and guidelines, and we would like to see that incorporated into the final report. And with that, I will turn it back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we do not have any other requests for comment at this time. Would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, please.
It is closed.
Thank you. Board Secretary, please call the roll and record votes for this agenda item.
Board Secretary Felsenfeld, the motion is to approve the SB 501 report and submit the final report to the California State Legislature before January 1st, 2022. Burton. Ms. Burton, did we get Ms. Burton back?
Yes.
I heard her, yes. I think you said yes, Ms. Burton?
Burton, yes.
Thank you. Burton, aye. Chan.
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld, aye. Lareen.
Lareen, aye.
Lareen, aye. McKenzie.
McKenzie, yes.
McKenzie, aye. Medina.
Medina, aye.
Medina, aye. Mendoza.
Mendoza, aye.
Mendoza, aye. Excuse me. Molina.
Molina, aye.
Molina, aye. Montel.
Montel, aye.
Montel, aye. Morrow.
Morrow, aye.
Morrow, aye. Olagi.
Olagi, aye.
Olagi, aye. Pacheco.
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, aye. Stewart.
Stewart, aye.
Stewart, aye. You,
aye.
aye. The motion, the vote is unanimous in the aye. The motion passes.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item 22, discussion and possible action to consider changes to previously proposed text and reauthorization of a regular rulemaking to amend Title 16, California Code of Regulations, sections 1021, 1043, 1043.1, 1043.2, 1043.3, 1043.4, 1043.5, 1043.6, 1043.7, 1043.8, 1044, 1044.1, 1044.2, 1044.3, and 1044.5. 1070.8 adopt sections 1017.1, 1043.8, 1, 1043.9, 1043.91, 1043.92, and repeal section 1044.4, Senate Bill 501, anesthesia and sedation, and a regular rulemaking to amend Title 16, California Code of Regulations, section 1016 and 1017, and adopt section 1016.2, consolidated continuing education. I will ask Sarah Wallace, Assistant Executive Officer, to present this agenda item.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Wallace, and I am the Assistant Executive Officer of the Dental Board. Today before you, board staff is bringing back a regulatory package that would implement the provisions of SB 501 relative to the application and renewal requirements for the anesthesia and sedation permits. At the board's May 2021 meeting, the board had initiated language, and due to the complexity of the package, board staff at that time had also recommended provisions relating to renewal requirements be consolidated into the continuing education rulemaking package. After various reviews with the Department of Consumer Affairs, we determined that there was a clarity issue with two provisions that were included in the continuing education package that would need to be put back into the SB 501 rulemaking package. So before you today is language in your meeting materials. I apologize. All of this language that is before you in the meeting materials, the board has already seen and has already approved. Staff is asking the board to take action today that would remove subdivisions V and W from the CE rulemaking package that's found on page 284 of your meeting materials. This is because there is a reference to section 1043.8.1, which is a new section that is being implemented as part of the SB 501 rulemaking. We are asking that those two subdivisions be removed from the CE rulemaking package and inserted into the SB 501 proposed rulemaking language that you will find on page 200 of your meeting materials. Those two subdivisions would then create a new section 1017.1 to add those two subdivisions that are pertaining to the renewal requirements for pediatric general anesthesia and moderate sedation permits. So today the board staff is asking the board to take action to approve the consolidation of the text and the changes to the proposed text as provided in the meeting materials, and reauthorize the regular rulemaking as follows. Direct staff to submit this text to the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs and the Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency for review, and if no adverse comments are received, authorize the Executive Officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, make any non-substantive changes to the package, and set the matter for hearing if requested. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. Again, I do want to preface that there are no changes to the language. The board has seen this language at the May meeting. Just working through the complexity of the package, we have found that we need to move this language back to the SB 501 rulemaking to ensure that we're in compliance with the APA standards that OAL will be reviewing. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Board members, please use the raised hand feature. Is there a motion to approve? Dr. Chan?
The motion to approve.
And is there a second?
Second.
Molina, second.
Molina, second. Thank you, Doctor. Are there any public comments? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
Thank you. This is the moderator. And I've opened that Q&A panel. If anyone would like to make a comment on this item, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text field, and submit that to our panelists. And I'm not seeing any requests for comment at this time. Would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, please.
It is closed.
Thank you. Board Secretary, please call the roll and record the votes for this agenda item.
This is Dr. Felsenfeld, the board secretary. This is item number 22 on our agenda. The motion is to direct staff to submit the text to the director of DCA, the Business and Consumer Services and Housing Agency, for review. And if no adverse comments, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, make non-substantive changes to the package, and set the matter for hearing if requested. Burton. Ms. Burton, we'll come back. Dr. Chan.
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld, aye. Lareen.
Lorraine, aye.
Lareen, aye. Mackenzie.
Mackenzie, yes.
Mackenzie, aye. Medina.
Medina, aye.
Medina, aye. Mendoza.
Mendoza, aye.
Mendoza, aye. Molina.
Molina, aye.
Molina, aye. Montel.
Montel, aye.
Montel, aye. Morrow.
Morrow, aye.
Morrow, aye. Olagi.
Olagi, aye.
Olagi, aye. Pacheco.
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, aye. Stewart.
Stewart, aye.
Stewart, aye. You.
You, aye.
You, aye. Ms. Burton, do we have you on the line now? If not, it's still unanimous. The motion is adopted.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item 23, discussion and possible action regarding board implementation of SB 501, Glacier Chapter 929, Statutes of 2018, and legislative proposal to add Section 1646.12 to Article 2.75, amend Section 1646.10 of Article 2.7, Section 1646.11 of Article 2.75, Section 1647.9.5 of Article 2.8, Section 1647.10 of Article 2.84, and Section 1647.17.15 of Article 2.85, Section 1647.35 of Article 2.87, Section 1724 of Article 6, and repeal Section 1646.13 of Article 2.75, Section 1647.12 of Article 2.84, and Section 1647.36 of Article 2.87 of Chapter 4 of Division 2 of the Business and Profession Code. I will ask Sarah Wallace, Assistant Executive Officer, to present this agenda item.
Good morning again. So the board just took action on the rulemaking package that will implement SB 501 provisions that were a result of legislation. This legislation was enacted in 2018 and becomes effective on January 1st of 2022. In essence, this statute will change the anesthesia and sedation permit requirements for application and renewal. Namely, the permit categories that will be affected are as follows. The general anesthesia permit holders will be able to continue administering anesthesia for patients over the age of 7, but will require additional educational requirements to be able to administer anesthesia or deep sedation to patients under the age of 7. The current conscious sedation permit will no longer exist and will be replaced with the moderate sedation permit. Additionally, the oral conscious sedation permit for minors will be replaced by the pediatric minimal sedation permit. Board staff have been working on the implementation of these provisions since the inception of the bill. It was contingent upon the board needing additional resources namely staffing resources and appropriation in order to implement these requirements. The requirements are also contingent upon the completion of the rulemaking, the regulatory package that the board has just taken action on, and the implementation of the BREEZE component to allow for applicants and permit holders to be able to apply for and renew their permits on the BREEZE system. Currently, the rulemaking package is still going through the process. It has been a very complex package, more complex than I think board staff had initially anticipated. Through the review process, we have found some additional issues that will need statutory provisions to rectify. But at this point in time, board staff is recommending that as we approach the implementation date of January 1st of 2022, and the fact that the rulemaking is still going through the process, beginning in January, we will no longer have provisions to continue the permitting of the existing permit holders. To clarify, SB 501 provided that existing permit holders, so the general anesthesia permit holders, the oral conscious sedation permit holders, and the oral conscious sedation for pediatric patients, and also the MGA permit holders, will be able to continue performing their duties up until the time that their permit expires. So beginning with the January 2022 month, we will have permit holders who will begin having their permits expire, and they will not be able to renew until the regulations become effective. Now, we are working closely with the Department of Consumer Affairs, and we are hopeful that we are going to be as expeditious as possible in getting this rulemaking through the process and then implementing it in BREEZE. But there are numerous factors that can contribute to the timeline that are unknown at this point in time. Board staff have put together a memo, which is in your meeting materials, that outlines the concerns. Board staff have also included a table that outlines the permit type, the application requirements that are listed in statute, why the regulations are needed for that permit type, what BREEZE implementation issues we'll need to work through. Is it possible for us to do administration of the application or renewal requirements with only the statute and the potential risk and impact? I also have Jessica Only on the line. She is the anesthesia unit manager, and she's available to answer any technical questions. But essentially at this point, beginning on page 296 of your board meeting materials, board staff have outlined the permit holders that we expect to expire over the course of 2022. Now, to clarify, there will still be permit holders available to administer anesthesia and sedation using the existing permit categories until their current permits expire, moving into late 2022 and 2023. Today, board staff has brought forward potential legislative proposals to address the implementation gap to ensure that we could potentially continue to issue new permits and renew the current permits until we are able to implement the provisions of the regulatory proposal. Option one extends the issuance and the renewal of the old general permit anesthesia permits until a time uncertain that just specifies that essentially we'll do it it'll be implemented upon completion of the rulemaking package and the implementation of the BREEZE component. Option two in your language includes an extension until January 1st of 2024 to give a time certain for implementation date. We have suggested these two options because while we can anticipate the rulemaking process moving forward in early 2022, an unknown at this point would be the BREEZE component. This was reported as part of the fiscal impact analysis when SB 501 was moving through the process. We would need to contract with an outside vendor to be able to implement the BREEZE component. And while I'm confident that it would be implemented as quickly as possible, there is always the concern that if we have a potential technical issue through testing, that could potentially delay implementation if the system isn't working as intended. So in anticipation of potential downfalls that could potentially delay the implementation even further, board staff are recommending option 1 in the language. Additionally, as we have gone through the rulemaking package in great detail with a very wonderful legal counsel in the reg unit, we have also identified other issues with the statutory language that will impact our regulatory proposal that need to be rectified in statute. That includes the need for a fee maximum in statute for the pediatric endorsement component of the anesthesia and sedation permits. This was discovered as we were going through the rulemaking process and developing the applications. Additionally, the moderate sedation renewal was inadvertently characterized as the conscious sedation permit and would need to be cleaned up in statute. And we also would need to include statutory authority for the pediatric endorsement renewal component. And so board staff has provided 2 legislative proposal options. Option 1 in your board meeting packet has been updated as of earlier this week. This was posted on the board's website and also sent out to board members that the only change to this language clarified that the permit holder would maintain the permit until it can be issued by the board under the article. And so at this point, board staff are recommending the board select a legislative proposal option that would help address the implementation date concerns and the gap in between the effective date of January 1st of 2022 and the implementation of the rulemaking and the BREEZE component, and ask that the legislative proposal be submitted with a request that it be considered an urgency clause. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I also have Jessica Olney here as well.
Board member comments, Dr. Chan.
This is Steve Chan. I'd like to move the motion with option 1. And can I give the reasoning?
Sure.
The reasoning is that we have so many different moving parts moving at different rates. And if we happen to accomplish some of those before the option 2, for example, 2024, we actually have the less of a risk of untoward events by having non-permit holders. So if we wait till 2024, there is a lot more risk involved. And I'd like to offer a comment. The comment is I've been doing anesthesia and sedation before there was any regs or before there was any oversight. This represents a shift, a paradigm shift in the profession and an evolution in the profession and a good evolution in the profession. So I'd like to thank those stakeholders and the staff for moving this forward for the safety of the public.
Thank you. Are there any board member comments or a second on the motion?
Ms. Felsenfeld, my hand does not go up if I can be recognized.
Yes.
I would be happy to second this. I just have a quick question for either Dr. Chan or Ms. Wallace. We are going to move forward the amended agenda item 23 that came in on the 15th with the all the blue text in it. Is that what you're talking about, Dr. Chan?
For that to Sarah or Jessica.
This is Sarah. Yes, the option 1 that is included in your board meeting materials would be replaced by the amended agenda item 23, attachment 1, distributed November 15th, 2021. That would be the option 1 language that board staff is recommending. And I would just ask that if Dr. Chan agrees that that's what he intended for his motion.
Absolutely. This is Chan.
And that is certainly what my second is for. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Welsh?
Thank you, Tara Welch, Board Counsel. I just also want to make clear that it's amended option 1 to be submitted as urgency legislation. that language isn't quite in the action requested, but I know that Ms. Wallace discussed submitting this as an urgency measure so that if the legislature agrees with the proposal and moves it through the legislative process, the bill would be enacted as soon as possible on the basis of protection of the health and safety of consumers.
Thank you. Are there any other board member comments? Seeing none, are there any public comments? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
Thank you. This is the moderator, and I've opened the Q&A panel. If anyone would like to propose a comment on the motion before you, please click on that Q&A comment. I can't talk. My apologies. Q&A icon on your screen. Type comment into the text field and then submit that to our panelists. And our first comment comes from Dr. Bruce Witcher. Dr. Witcher, I've sent a request to unmute your microphone. And as a reminder, everyone will have 2 minutes to make their comment.
Thank you. Just an observation. I know board staff has been over this extensively, but if you're going to do statutory cleanup, you might look at the lack of a provision for continuing education for the pediatric minimal sedation permit. Previously, there was a 7-hour per year for 2-year requirement for pediatric OCS. SB 501 did not carry that over. So that might be something you want to add back in. Second, I'm making that comment as an individual. Second of all, I am the liaison between CDA's Government Affairs Council and the board. And in that capacity, we would like to strongly support option 1. Thank you for taking my comments.
Thank you. And our next comment comes from Mary McCoon. Mary, I've sent a request to unmute your microphone.
From CDA. Dr. Witcher actually just made my comment for me, so I'm going to retract.
Okay, thank you. And our next comment comes from Brian Huang. Brian, I've sent the request to unmute your microphone.
Hi, this is Brian Huang. I'm here to represent CSDA, California Society of Dentists and Anesthesiologists. Few comments about SB 501, since you guys are going to clean it up. One, we don't think PALS is the best course for the airway management training. Second, we feel that if there's a separate anesthesia provider, we don't feel that there should be need for the dentist to also be PALS certified. Third, we don't feel that it's really necessary for PALS for moderate oral conscious sedation, oral moderate sedation for kids. It seems to be a barrier to care. And fourth, we don't feel that precordial stethoscope is really necessary for intubated general anesthesia, as the MD counterparts don't use it anyways. And finally, we do like to have on the next agenda meeting, maybe put on the next agenda that we can collaborate to create a course in lieu of PALS. In the language, there was a possibility that we can create a course approved by the board in lieu of PALS for the airway training part. And CSDA would love to collaborate with all the organizations out there and any stakeholders to create this course to make this makes more sense. That is all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. And not seeing any other requests for comment at this time, would you like me to close the panel?
Thank you. Yes.
It is closed.
Thank you. Board Secretary, please call the roll and record the votes for this agenda item.
The motion is to approve option 1 as updated to be submitted as an urgency legislation regarding general anesthesia and sedation permits extension. Burton. Still don't have Ms. Burton on. Chan.
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld, aye. Loreen.
Lorraine, aye.
Loreen, aye. Mackenzie.
Mackenzie, yes.
Mackenzie, aye. Medina.
Medina, I.
Medina, aye. Mendoza. Mendoza? Did we lose him? I'll come back in a bit. Miss Molina, Dr. Molina.
Molina, I.
Molina, aye. Montel.
Montel, I.
Montel, aye. Morrow.
Morrow, I.
Morrow, aye. Alagi.
I.
Alagi, aye. Pacheco.
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, aye. Stewart.
Stewart, I.
Stewart, aye. You.
I.
You, aye. Miss Burton, are you with us? And Mr. Mendoza, are you there? Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Mendoza.
This is the moderator. Ms. Burton is still connected. I'm just not sure her microphone is working. She's unmuted. We just cannot hear her.
All right. Well,
And Mr. Mendoza did drop off. I'm watching for him to return.
all right. Well, at this point, we'll mark them both absent relative to inability to vote. However, we do have 11 ayes and the motion passes.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item 26A, report from the Commission on Dental Competency Assessment and Western Regional Examination Board, Cdca Reb. I will ask Dr. Guy Champagne, Vice President of the ADEX, and Dr. William Pappas, President of the ADEX, and Dr. Bruce Horn, Director of Dental Examinations for Reb, to provide the report on this agenda item.
This is Guy Champagne. Actually, Bill Pappas will be taking the lead in this.
Thank you, Dr. Champagne. And thank you, President Pacheco and board members. Greetings from ADEX. Just to go over a little bit about the ADEX organization for board members who might not be aware, ADEX is an organization of state member boards, and our calling is to develop the content, criteria, and scoring for the ADEX examination. Cdca Reb is the administering agency for the ADEX examination, and they're tasked with actually providing the examination, the actual administration. The ADEX annual meeting convened on August 6th and 7th of this year. Member board representatives met to review the exam, continue exam development, and elect officers. We welcome 2 states, Utah and Texas, as member boards, and the House gave proxy to the board of directors to welcome North Dakota since the annual meeting, and that took place at our last board meeting. We would very much like to welcome California as a member board. California has its own district, District 1, and would appoint a member to the board of directors and also a member to the House of Representatives and the Dental Examination Committee. There's no cost to participate, with travel, lodging, and meal expenses reimbursed or provided, and there's no membership fee. Even before the merger of Cdca and Reb, just over 85% of 2021 graduates took the ADEX examination. With the Cdca merger with Reb, the pursuit of a national licensure exam in dentistry has been realized. Dentistry joins allopathic and osteopathic medicine, nursing, pharmacy, podiatry, occupational and physical therapy with one licensure examination. On their website, the USMLE, the National Licensing Exam for Medicine, describes the reason for consolidating to one examination as to ensure all licensed MDs had passed the same assessment standards, no matter in which school they had trained. In dentistry, this is no less true. As of July 1st, 2022, one licensing examination, the ADEX exam, will be offered in every dental school in the United States. Content, criteria, and scoring will be uniform.
Students will have the opportunity to take the examination in their own school with instruments and facilities that they're familiar with. Retakes, when required, can also be completed in their own school. This makes for a more fair examination compared to having to travel to an unfamiliar site with different units and different instruments, possibly having to use an electric handpiece for the first time or having to use an air-driven handpiece for the first time. It also significantly reduces costs to the students, such as food, lodging, and travel. State boards are assured that all candidates for licensure have been held to the same high standards. With your permission, President Pacheco, I'd like to introduce Shayna Overfelt, Director of School Operations for CDCA Reb, to continue the presentation.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure her mic has been unmuted.
This is the moderator. I did promote her to a panelist. She does have microphone control now.
And now I'm unmuted. Would that be correct?
You are.
Hello? Great. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Pappas. As he introduced, my name is Shayna Overfelt. I'm the Director of School Programs for the CDCA Reb. One of the most exciting things that I get to do is work internally inside the schools to help not only the students, but faculty and deans coordinate the ADEX administration of the examinations. As Dr. Pappas mentioned, by 2023, when exams begin, CDCA Reb will be administering the ADEX exam, and every dental school in the United States will be delivering that ADEX examination. One key thing to note is that 85% of the 2021 graduates took the ADEX examination for licensure. So we are excited about that. We are excited about the national concept of an examination, as Dr. Pappas had mentioned. The other thing to note is that 95% of the dental exams administered by CDCA Reb in 2021 were non-patient-based examinations. So lots of exciting things happening in the dental licensure world. Right there in your own backyard in California, ADEX did administer 277 licensure exams to candidates of your California dental schools. So currently, the ADEX exam is offered at USC, the University of Pacific, and the University of California, San Francisco. With this merger, we look forward to working with Loma Linda, UCLA, Western, and your new school, California North State University. The other exciting thing to report is that we host an educators conference every year. That meeting is happening January 7th and 8th, 2022 at the Gaylord Rockies. Every school in California is sending a representative to this educators conference. I think this is a fantastic way to really introduce ourselves, myself included, to these schools and then help build the relationship that CDCA and Reb, now together as CDCA Reb, will continue to develop and grow and prepare both academic faculty, deans, and students for the ADEX examination. Now, when we talk about this transition, the one thing I want to highlight is over the last 5 years, ADEX had, the CDCA Reb, CDCA prior to the merger, had transitioned over 60 schools to administering an ADEX exam. Of those 60 schools, 15 of those schools nationwide were dental schools. So together, CDCA Reb looks to finish and encourage this relationship with other schools across the country to make an ADEX examination available in all dental schools across the U.S. Now, Dr. Pappas had mentioned the student's advantage of a consolidated licensure exam. There are also other advantages to faculty and administration. This is one of those key things I talked about that I get to come into play. Is faculty is often having to deal with having to make a decision of offering an exam that meets the needs of their students, and whether that's just one exam or multiple exams. Often it takes multiple exams to meet the needs of all of their students. The good news is with ADEX, we will now be able to meet a majority of all of the needs of the students within their classes. So the only states that currently do not accept ADEX is New York, which is a PGY1. They do not accept any third-party licensure, and Delaware also not accepting any third-party licensure. but every other student in that class will meet the needs by taking an ADEX licensure exam for portability and mobility across the country. And there's one other group that I do not want to forget that this really benefits, and that is your board staff. The board staff with a single exam to turn to for results for licensure, this will make their job much easier in the future to know it's just one reporting agency helping report those board scores, and they're not having to track down multiple agencies across the country. So I thank you so much for your time. I appreciate the opportunity to present today. Dr. Pappas, I'll turn it back over to you. And if there are any questions, I'll gladly be here to answer.
Thank you, Shana. The one thing I'd like to add is even in New York, which is a PGY1 state, 98% of the candidates, the students take a licensure examination just for portability's sake, because the PGY1 is not recognized everywhere. They still end up taking a licensure examination. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Are there any board member comments? Please use the raised hand feature. Seeing none, are there any public comments? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
Thank you. This is the moderator. Go ahead.
Madam President.
Yes. Did I not see your hand, Dr. Morrow?
Unfortunately, my raised hand feature is not operational.
Oh, please. I guess we can take your comment now and hold on the public comment.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, CDCA and Rev, for meeting with us. I do have a few questions and maybe some comments to make. As you noted previously, presently in California, there are only 3 dental schools that offer the ADEX exam. Your goal of having every dental school in the United States offer the combined CDCA Rev examination is very, what should I say, optimistic, let's put it that way, by 2023. My understanding is that 2022 will be the last year that the Rev exam will be administered. Looking at the Rev examination, I see that there is a policy in the Rev exam called on-site retakes. Would it be possible for you to explain to the board members, is that same policy will be carried on to the new CDCA Rev exam? And if so, please explain what that policy is and how it works.
Yes, Dr. Morrow, that policy won't be continued. And I'd actually like to have Dr. Guy Champagne speak about that feature, if we could.
Sure. So CDCA Rev will follow really in the protocol that CDCA used prior to this, and that is we give retakes at the home school whenever possible. So in other words, our retakes at any given school after the initial exam, there'll be 1 or 2 retakes scheduled during the period prior to graduation until the number gets so small that the school just doesn't want to host it. And at that point, they become regional. After graduation, when the candidate is a dentist, that is a different issue. And then they have to take the examination at a traditional retake site. So our goal is to actually give the retakes at the original school throughout the process until graduation if possible.
Okay, let me for purposes of information for the other board members, I would like to read what is stated in the Reb exam procedures from your website. It states, and I quote, candidates with a failing result in endodontics, operative, simulation, prosthodontics, or periodontics, simulated or patient, may have the opportunity to retake the failed section on site on the last day of the exam. Now, if a candidate has failed one of those sections, they have obviously demonstrated incompetence in that section. Somehow, overnight or the next day, they retake that same section, and pass it, they have overnight gained competence. I don't understand the rationale regarding a retake of a failed section without recording that that section was failed and then retaken and passed. All of a sudden, that candidate gained competency in that section without any additional training or experience.
That's a great point, Dr. Morrow, and that's exactly why the ADEX examination does not do that. We would certainly hope that the candidate will pursue remediation between the examination that they take and then the retake examination. Sometimes that occurs and the candidate corrects the errors that they encountered, and sometimes it doesn't, and that speaks to the effectiveness of the examination in pointing out the candidate's deficiency.
So are you stating that the retake on-site policy will continue with the ADEX examination?
No. That exactly, it won't continue. Reb is joining and will be giving, as CDCA Reb, the ADEX examination. The ADEX examination doesn't have that policy, never has had that policy, and won't adopt that policy.
Yeah, and this is Guy Champagne again. I apologize. When you said on-site retake, from the ADEX point of view, that means allowing the retake examination down the road after remediation at the same original home site. We've never had a provision where you can retake a section you failed again. First of all, when it was a patient-based exam, that's almost, there's a problem with defensibility once you find somebody that is providing inappropriate care in a patient. We found you couldn't allow them to treat the next patient. But more importantly, the exam results seem to be reliable. So and upon retakes, pass rates don't go up. Like most exams, retakers' pass rates go down unless remediation has occurred between. And since they're still in school, the assumption is remediation will happen. And for the schools of California that are already in ADEX, they get, when a candidate is unsuccessful, they get a critique. They're told what criteria were found to be done not clinically appropriate. And in the EndoPros exam, they're actually given photographs of the work to help in remediation. But we've never had the ability to retake any section of the exam during that exam session. It's only after remediation.
Thank you very much for that explanation. When you submit a report to a licensing agency regarding an applicant's history from the examination process, if they have, in fact, failed a section of the exam and had to retake it, will that be noted in the report to the licensing agency?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not not only is it noted, it is noted within the context of how the failure occurred. So every attempt is in the transcript. No attempts can be removed. The outcome of all attempts are in the transcript, but it will also tell the licensing board whether that attempt was taken in school or it was taken after graduation. So the licensing authority knows every attempt, every location of the attempt, and the conditions of the attempt.
Okay, thank you. And probably my final question would be, historically, what is the percentage of pass for the ADEX examination on the first attempt? And secondly, what is the section that is failed most often and has to be retaken?
The average pass rate the pass rate per section varies. So in PROS, it's in the mid 90s. In restorative, it's in the mid 90s. In perio-scaling, it is in the very high 90s. And endodontics is the lowest pass rate, and that's in the around 88%. So the most difficult psychomotor section seems to be endodontics. For the OSCE examination, the computerized OSCE examination, that pass rate has been steady for the last 10 or 15 years. And so the first time pass rate is around 96 to 97%.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate your responses.
Dr. Morrow, this is Shayna Overfelt. I was going to add one thing about your first comment about how many dental schools across the country, and that it seems a little advantageous. This is one of my prides. This is one of the things I get to work on often. So there are at this moment only 8 dental schools in the United States that do not offer ADEX, but they do offer REB. So now with the merger of CDCA REB, we hope that those 8 schools will transition and come with us, and then we're talking a full ADEX exam at every dental school.
Thank you very much. It appears that 5 of those 8 are in California.
Thank you. Just to let the participants know, we will take a break after the public comments. So DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
Thank you. This is the moderator, and our Q&A panel is open. If anybody has a comment to make on this presentation, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text field, and submit that to our panelists. And I'm not seeing any requests for comment. Would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, please. And we will take a break until 10:45. Thank you.
Oh, boy.
Dr. Horn and Shayna Overfelt for the presentation. We will now move on to agenda item 26B, presentation from the DCA Office of Professional Examination Services, OPES, regarding use of dentist licensing examinations, and agenda 26C, discussion and possible action on prioritization of examination reviews to be conducted by DCA OPES. I will ask Ms. Wallace to introduce this agenda item.
Good morning. We have asked the Department of Consumer Affairs Office of Professional Examination Services to provide a presentation to the board regarding different DDS licensing examinations. The board has received licensing examination requests in the past, and we anticipate that we will continue to receive requests for regional examinations to be reviewed by the board moving forward. OPES is here today to give us a presentation regarding the availability and the different formats of those examinations and things that the board may want to consider when making determinations on whether or not to continue with reviews. Additionally, in agenda item C, we are asking the board to prioritize 2 examination reviews. One is for the DL-OSCE and one is for the California Portfolio Examination. OPES conducts our examination reviews in addition to conducting our occupational analyses and our exam validations for all of the board's written examinations. Due to the workload, the enormous workload that we put on OPES, I think we could probably employ them solely by dental board with all of our examinations. We are asking the board to consider prioritizing which review the OPES should conduct next, whether or not it's the portfolio exam or the DL-OSCE. And so today I have asked Dr. Tracy Montez and Dr. Heidi Linser to come and provide a presentation to the board and then ask the board to prioritize the next 2 examination reviews. And I believe Dr. Linser and Dr. Montez are on the line as well. And if you move to the next slide, I believe the presentation should follow the slide.
I think we're waiting for the next slide. This is Tracy Montez.
This is Heidi Linser. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning. This is Heidi Linser. I'm the Chief of the Office of Professional Examination Services. I have with me Tracy Montez, who's the Chief of the Division of Programs and Policy Review. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to your board again. But before we start the presentation, I just want to say that Tracy and I are honored to have been able to work with Karen Fisher for so many years, and we want to wish her a very happy retirement. We can move to next slide. So OPS was recently asked to assist the board in prioritizing the evaluation of its licensure examinations. This type of assistance is consistent with OPS mission within DCA. OPS works collaboratively with DCA boards and bureaus to develop solutions to the challenges facing their licensure programs. As part of DCA, OPS is uniquely positioned to evaluate examination programs for compliance with DCA policies with the overall goal of public protection. And there is a memo in your board meeting materials summarizing the issues that we'll be talking about today. I'm hoping that we'll be able to stimulate some good discussion on some important issues. Next slide. So OPS's mandate originates with BMP Code 139. Section 139 requires, among other things, that all examinations used for licensure in California must undergo periodic psychometric evaluation. OPES reviews examinations to make sure they're fair, valid, and legally defensible. The principles and standards that are listed here on the slide provide the guidelines that we use to conduct the reviews. For example, all examinations must be based on occupational analysis that defines the minimum competencies to practice safely. You heard from the DAC committee report, we had just finished an occupational analysis for the Rdaef program. We've conducted occupational analyses for almost all of the board's licensing examinations. And we've also conducted several reviews for the dental board. When OPS reviews an examination, we typically review it
on its own merits. We just look at that particular examination by itself. We review the occupational analysis and we make sure that the examination is based on the identified competencies in the occupational analysis. We also make sure that it measures minimum competencies identified in our own California occupational analysis. However, we typically don't compare it to other examinations that the board is using. So when OPS started discussions with the dental board staff recently about prioritizing the review of multiple examinations, it started some internal discussions at OPS about the number and variety of dental licensure examinations. Next slide. One of the more recent concerns for all of us in the regulatory industry is about unnecessary barriers to practice. Licensure examinations must protect consumers while not limiting access to occupations or putting up unnecessary barriers to practice. It's a balance between those two goals. As I mentioned, the dental profession is somewhat unique in having multiple examinations available for licensure. The use of multiple examinations should not result in unnecessary barriers. Moving forward, we want to make sure that any required examinations test minimum competencies necessary for safe entry-level practice, and that there are not redundant requirements. Next slide. So I keep mentioning minimum competence. When we're looking at multiple examinations, it helps to know what critical competencies we're trying to assess. There is a debate going on between psychometricians developing dental licensure examinations about the assessment of psychomotor skills. The goal of most licensure examinations is to measure the application of the knowledge and skills learned in school to practice-based situations. Based on multiple occupational analyses, there's agreement that for dentistry, clinical knowledge, clinical judgment, and psychomotor skills are necessary. However, there's a difference of opinion over when psychomotor skills need to be assessed. During educational programs, potential licensees learn and are assessed on clinical knowledge and psychomotor skills related to their profession. Typically, both clinical knowledge and psychomotor skills are assessed before graduation. And for licensure, we often assess psychomotor skills again. In addition, we always assess clinical judgment. However, recent licensure trends are moving away from assessing skills. As you know, in your own program, we just moved away from assessing skills for the RDA and for the RDA-EF. This trend is following in other professions as well. And this may be related to the cost and resources required of doing the clinical practical type exams, or it may be more focused on reducing unnecessary barriers to licensure. Moving forward, the board should consider whether psychomotor skills for dentists are adequately assessed in the educational and training process, or whether they need to be tested on a licensure examination. The answer to this question will help the board and OPS ensure that they are only accepting examinations that measure the same set of competencies. Next slide. So this slide shows the examinations that dental candidates are currently required to pass to become licensed in California. We have the INBDE examination, which is the Integrated National Board Dental Examination. That is a written exam taken during school, and that measures clinical knowledge. The REB and the ADEX, as you know, measure psychomotor skills and clinical judgment. And as you heard earlier, these two examination providers are merging. So beginning in 2023, only the ADEX exam will be offered. And then we also have the California Portfolio Examination. So regarding prioritizing examinations for review, I marked the REB and ADEX exams in green because they were recently reviewed by OPES and both examinations met psychometric standards. I marked the INDE examination and the California Portfolio in red because these examinations are in need of review. OPS has never reviewed the INBDE examination, and in order to meet BMP 139 standards, it would need to be reviewed. And also the California Portfolio examination was developed
in 2014, and that it needs to be updated and reviewed. So as you can see, there's a variety of examination formats that are currently in use for dental licensure examinations. Next slide. So an argument could be made that we need these different formats to measure the essential competencies: clinical knowledge, clinical judgment, and psychomotor skills. Written examinations are good for measuring knowledge. Clinical and portfolio examinations are good for measuring psychomotor skills, and OSCE type format is good for clinical judgment. And there has also been a steady evolution of examination technology. We've moved from patient-based to well-executed non-patient-based assessments. And with the use of computer simulations, we've also improved on the traditional OSCE format. We no longer need to have physical stations. We're able to simulate the typical OSCE type of station in a computer format that seems to be working very well. OPS recently reviewed the non-patient-based alternatives developed by Rdaef and ADEX and found that the new formats improve standardization while maintaining sufficient validity. So you've also asked OPS to prioritize review of the dental licensure OSCE or DL OSCE. The DL OSCE measures clinical judgments, but not psychomotor skills. As I mentioned earlier, the board's request for OPS to potentially review the DL OSCE raised concerns for OPS about multiple examination formats and different competencies. Next slide. So what's the problem with multiple examination formats? From a psychometric perspective, the variety of examination formats makes it difficult to determine if examinations are measuring the same competencies. It's also more difficult to compare pass rates from a portfolio examination to a clinical examination. And most importantly, if candidates are not all taking the same examination, this can cause confusion over minimum competence. Next slide. So as I stated earlier, when OPS completes a psychometric review, we have typically not focused on comparing one examination to another. We've just looked at that examination by itself and determined if it met standards. However, in the future, we are going to do this and look at how this examination fits in with the board's other examinations and try to apply these criteria for accepting multiple national examinations. So from a psychometric perspective, if you're going to accept multiple examinations, they should have consistent validity evidence. They should measure the same competencies, and they should have approximately the same pass rates. If pass rates differ, sometimes candidates will choose the examination with the highest pass rate because they think it's easier. If all these criteria are met, there are some advantages to accepting multiple examinations. Next slide. For example, because all examinations are not accepted by all jurisdictions, accepting multiple examinations improves portability for candidates. It also allows candidates more choice if they think a particular examination format is better for them. However, as previously discussed, the competencies will still be measured in different ways, thereby reducing standardization. In addition, accepting multiple examinations requires more responsibility on the part of the board. The board has to work with multiple agencies. The board must stay abreast of changes to a variety of examinations, and the board has ongoing costs for examination reviews. The next slide. So in summary, OPS recommends right now that the board's first priority should be to review the INBDE examination and the portfolio examination. As these exams are currently in use and accepted by the board, they need to be reviewed to comply with BMP 139 requirements. In addition, the board should discuss whether psychomotor skills are sufficiently assessed during education and training. That will help the board decide when accepting other examinations. Regarding the DL OSCE, OPS believes that a review is premature due to the limited number of states that are using this examination. If the board chooses to consider the DLOSCI, OPS would like to wait for more data to be available. Finally, moving forward, the board and OPS should evaluate whether examinations considered for review measure the same competencies and add value to candidates. Next slide. That's the end of my presentation. I don't know if Tracy might want to say something, or we can move on to discussion or questions.
This is Tracy. No, thank you, Heidi. I think you covered everything, all the critical points.
Thank you.
Are there any board member comments?
Madam President.
Yes, Dr. Morrow.
Unfortunately, again, my raised hand feature is not functioning.
Well, thank you for just jumping in.
I hate to just butt in there, but thank you, Dr. Linser, for your presentation. I appreciate your visiting with us on multiple occasions. Regarding the issue relating to prioritizing the review of different examinations, a couple of comments that I would like to make. First of all, as far as the portfolio examination is concerned, I have a very vested interest and a close emotional attachment to that examination, as I was involved with its conception and implementation originally. As you probably know, and I think the rest of the board members know, that the portfolio examination can only be taken by graduates from dental schools located in the state of California. So that limits right there the number of people or potential licensees that we could have resulting in California, resulting in that portal examination. Secondly, it is not widely being utilized at the present time by the dental schools in California. I and other previous board members have met on multiple occasions with the deans of the dental schools to see what we could do to maybe make some changes and to implement a better utilization. So far, we have not had very much communication, effective communication with the deans. As a result of the limited number of candidates that can take that examination, there are a limited number of states at this point that will accept it, which, with those factors all put together, it has unfortunately not been a popular licensure instrument for students graduating from our dental schools. With that said, the two exams that you are suggesting that we look at for prioritizing the assessment puts the dental licensure obstructive structured clinical examination, or the DLOSCI, as being the other choice. First of all, the potential for individuals to take this examination is extremely open, because the examination is given at multiple testing centers like Prometric or other similar organizations. That does not have to be taken in a dental school. It is a computerized examination that takes approximately 6 to 7 hours, and with a significant less cost than the regular multiple day type of examinations. the question is, and also the question is, how many states accept this as well? I believe that we're pretty close. The number of states that accept the portfolio exam and the number that accept the Delosky exam at this time. However, the potential number of possible licensees is significantly greater for the Delosky than it is for the portfolio. So it is my hope and certainly my recommendation that the board consider at this point in time that the Office of Professional Examination Services review the dental licensure objective structured clinical examination as to whether it meets the state's requirements for the licensing examination. And I would go one step further and say that I move that the board request that the Office of Professional Examination Services review and report to the board the results of the Delosky examination meeting state requirements for a licensing examination for dentistry.
This is Heidi. Thank you, Dr. Morrow. A couple points. Our concern for reviewing the portfolio is that it isn't currently in use as is accepted as an exam and hasn't been reviewed for a long time. Just wanted to make that point. Granted, I see your point in that it's in very limited use. I just wanted to clarify that point. And
Are there?
Yes, my understanding is, yes, I agree that the portfolio examination is in little use at this point. And also, as I said before, there are very few states that accept it. So the portability of that examination is very limited.
Thank you, Dr. Morrow. Are there any other board member comments?
President Pacheco, I think that Dr. Morrow actually made a motion.
So his motion was to request that OPES review and report to board the results of the Delosky meeting the state requirements for dentistry. Is that the motion, Dr. Morrow?
Yes, that's correct.
And is there a second on the motion?
This is Dr. Lottie, I'll second that.
Thank you, Dr. Loren.
Board President, I would like to make a comment. This is Karen Fisher, Executive Officer. I think it's at this time during this discussion for the board to decide whether it would be appropriate to review the Delosky before it's actually accepted through statute. So you might want to be discussing that.
Board member comments on Ms. Fisher's remarks.
Hi, this is Alicia Montel. I just have a clarifying comment or question. Can somebody please explain to me what the timeline for these reviews would be? And if we were going to eventually get to all three, what would the timeline on that look like?
Ms. Montez?
I was going to say, Sarah, are you comfortable jumping in here?
Yes, I believe looking at the interagency agreements and the schedule with the other examinations that we have currently, I believe, and Dr. Lindsay, you may need to jump in as well, but I believe the earliest we could begin on either of these reviews would be in fiscal year 22-23. So it wouldn't begin until July. And I believe it would take 12 to 18 months to complete.
To complete one or to complete?
To complete one exam review, correct.
Okay, and then, so we're talking about actually eventually doing all three, but we're just prioritizing one before the other of two, right?
Correct. So board staff is requesting the board prioritize which review happens first, with the understanding that OPS also works with the board to complete the occupational analyses that are in queue, and also the continuous exam reviews and validation reviews and updates to the written exams for the DDS law and ethics, the RDA written, the EF written, the orthodontic assistant, and the dental sedation assistant written exams as well. So it's the combination of all that workload that has to continue on with the addition of these new examination reviews that we're asking that the new examination reviews be prioritized.
Okay, thank you. And then Karen, can you repeat your comment that you said just before?
Yes, sorry for the delay, Dr. Montel. So what I was saying is that when it comes time for the board to consider whether to move forward with the DL-OSCE, there would need to be a statutory change in order for the board to accept that. So my comment was for the board to consider, did you want to move forward with the review of the DL-OSCE before it's actually in statute?
Thank you, appreciate it.
This is Heidi Linter. I also want to point out that the DL-OSCE does not measure psychomotor skills, which your other exams do. And that was one of the impetus for this presentation, was that considering an exam that doesn't measure the same competencies would be something the board should consider moving forward, because that would change the would sort of change the definition of minimum competence across your different examinations.
And if I may, this is Dr. Montes jumping in to, again, it's not that OPS is saying not to review the DL-OSCE. It is simply saying that to be compliant with Business and Professions Code Section 139, it would likely be a better use of the board's resources to first review the INB, DE, and the portfolio examinations. As those reviews are happening and the other work with the board, the expectation is that there will be additional data for the DL-OSCE, and then the board can revisit that. Certainly, if you want to create a priority and have that as the third, program to evaluate in your motion is fine. But we really think it's important to understand that your board meet the initial mandates first of these first two exams, and then look at your other options. Thank you.
This is Dr. Morrow again. I hate to interrupt without being able to raise my hand, but that's the only thing I can do. I hear what you're saying regarding the need to review the portfolio exam. At the present time, with my communication with the deans of all 7 now of the dental schools, and my longtime association with dental education in the state of California, the dental school deans and of all of the schools are strongly in favor of pursuing the possibility of the DL-OSCE being accepted as licensure in California. So from a priority standpoint, the dental education community in the state of California would be in favor of pursuing the determination of the DL-OSCE meeting state requirements for licensure. It seems like to me that an establishment of the Delaski examination meeting state requirements would precede putting the acceptance of that examination into code.
Are there any further board member comments?
Yeah, Felsenfeld, I had my hand raised. I'm not sure it's visible though. I have a question for either Dr. Montez or Dr. Linser. B&P 139, is there a statutory requirement that existing exams are reviewed on a regular basis?
This is Dr. Montez. Yes, Business and Professions Code Section 139 mandates the boards to ensure that there is adequate evidence of validity to support their examination programs. The recommendation is every 5 years. Our guidelines say 2 to 7. We use 5 given the type of professions that we regulate. Business and Professions Code Section 139 is based on case law and as well as the standards that govern examinations on a national and international level. They're not only applicable to regulatory exams in California, but any type of exam, selection or regulatory. And again, these guidelines are used by the courts when assessing job-related questions, fairness to exams, equity, again, profession-related. And so OPS is designated within the department to work with all of our boards and bureaus to ensure that 139 is met. So that's why Heidi is bringing to your attention the need to review these first 2 exams. And certainly, I agree with Dr. Morrow that you would want to ensure the Delaski meet psychometric principles before going through the regulatory process, but certainly making sure that your 2 current exams in statute have met the evidence of validity and concur with the cycle of review in code is important. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further board member comments? Since the raised hand feature is not totally working, please just jump in.
This is Dr. Montel again. Just one more question. So you had mentioned that you wanted to get additional data for review before reviewing the Delaski. Is there any reason that a review before that would have any detrimental effect on the review itself?
Yes, we just have concerns because the exam is fairly new. I believe it was implemented in 2020. So not a lot of states are accepting it. So there's not going to be a lot of data. Some of the data that we look at comes from the number of candidates, looking at pass rates. So some of that data we won't have as much as we would like to have. However, some of the other things that we look at, which is the occupational analysis that it's based on, how the exam is developed, the use of subject matter experts, that will be available. So we just won't have as much data as we usually do and we like to have.
Any other board member comments? Please jump in.
Well, this is Dr. Morrow again. I think that we probably have pretty close to an equal amount of data related to the implementation of the portfolio examination as we have with the current implementation of the Delaski exam.
Thank you, Dr. Morrow. Any other board member comments?
This is Dr. Larin. I'm concerned about the psychomotor skills that is not included in Dolosky, and that's why I accepted to go ahead and review it, because I think that's an important part, and I just want to make sure that everybody understands that it's probably not going to look, it's not going to be evaluated. I mean, it's going to be evaluated. You're going to find out that it's not there. So for me, that's an important part of any exam, the psychomotor skills. But I would like to review it before we actually go into regulations. I mean, we need to review it first.
Thank you, Dr. Loren.
Thank you.
This is Dr. Morrow again. As far as the psychomotor skills are concerned, I obviously have a high concern for dentists to have well-developed psychomotor skills upon graduation from their dental education. With the implementation of the Commission on Dental Accreditation, which sets very rigorous standards as far as assessment of students' psychomotor skills in the process of competency examinations. There is evidence to support that upon graduation, the Commission on Dental Accreditation has required that the dental schools that are approved by the Commission have graduated students that meet the net level of psychomotor skills that are necessary to enter into the unsupervised practice of dentistry. So in that respect, I would like to ask those members of the dental board that are dentists and have graduated from a dental school that is approved by the Commission on Dental Accreditation. Do you think and do you feel that upon graduation you had sufficient psychomotor skills to enter into the unsupervised practice of dentistry, which is CODA's definition of competency? If you did, then do those skills need to be tested again? Or is it acceptable to say clinical judgment should be more of a focus on the licensing examination than psychomotor skills? If you feel or you think that you did not have sufficient psychomotor skills when you graduated from dental school, then you have an issue with your dental school.
Thank you, Dr. Morrow. Any other board member comments?
Ms. Pacheco, I'd like to make a comment before we move on to public comment.
Yes, please.
This agenda item, this is Karen Fisher, Executive Officer. This agenda item is strictly asking the board what order, essentially, do they want to put next into the queue. So the review by OPES of the national exam is already in the queue. The other two options at this point, for now, are the portfolio and the DL-OSCE. We have a statutory obligation to review the portfolio because that's already an exam that the board accepts. Whether or not it is used anymore really isn't the question. The question also isn't whether or not the DL-OSCE will be reviewed, because the board wanted to move forward with that. But the question right now is, do you agree that it needs to come behind the portfolio? So So I hope that's a little more helpful. And at that, President Pacheco, if you want to now go to public comment.
Thank you. DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
Thank you. This is the moderator, and I've opened the Q&A panel. If anyone would like to comment on this presentation and discussion, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text box, and submit that to our panelists. Our first comment comes from David Waldschmidt. And David, I've sent a request to unmute your microphone. And as a reminder, you will have 2 minutes.
On right now? Excellent. Can you hear me now then?
We can.
Excellent. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be able to speak before the board. And I want to thank the board again for all that it's doing in protecting the public. My name is David Waldschmidt. I'm the director of the Joint Commission on National Dental Examinations. I'm also the senior director of the ADA's Department of Testing Services. And I'd just like to note that the Joint Commission truly welcomes reviews of the INBDE and the Dental Licensure Objective Structured Clinical Examination. I'd really like to echo Dr. Moreau's comments here and encourage the board to consider the DOLOSCI as soon as possible for the very reasons indicated in the slide that shared information about the standards and the guidelines that the board follows, which include reference to the Society for Industrial Psychology's Principles for Validation and Use of Personnel Selection Procedures and the Standards for Educational Testing, Educational and Psychological Testing. I'm an industrial psychologist by profession, educated many years ago at Michigan State and the Illinois Institute of Technology under Neil Schmidt and Dr. Nambre Raju, respectively. I want to note that the Joint Commission feels that psychomotor skills are extremely important. Psychomotor skills are not directly measured by the DOLOSCI. However, it predicts them far better than existing clinical measures. Validity is fundamental. Validity is at the heart of everything that the board is considering. When you look at the standards, it indicates that, and I quote, evidence of the validity of a given interpretation of test scores for a specified use is a necessary condition for the justifiable use of an examination. When I presented to the board earlier this year, I shared peer-reviewed research studies involving existing clinical measures that showed that the average validity was quite low. When you look at the patient-based examinations and their correlation, it was about 0.05.
30 seconds.
Pardon?
30 seconds left.
Okay, this is regarded as a small or less than small effect size in the literature, Jacob Cohen, et cetera. 0.14, roughly around there for mannequins. The concerns that were discussed earlier about REB and retake are relevant, of course, there as well in terms of retest reliability. That's why you're seeing people pass again on retake. The DOLOSCI, on the other hand, predicts clinical performance at an extremely high level. We have one study with a correlation of 0.57 between DOLOSCI performance and performance in third-year clinical courses. That's corrected to 0.70. Individuals we also had a study where we looked at the top 20% of candidates in their clinical performance and the bottom 20% within their schools, and we found that there was a 1.28 standard deviation unit difference in their corresponding performance on the DOLOSCI.
Time has expired.
That's the difference between a Pro Bowl quarterback and a regular quarterback in the NFL. These are the reasons why we have the supportive schools. And I really enjoy hearing the California psychometricians. I absolutely love to see their involvement in this process. I'd encourage you to compare for yourselves the validity of existing exams as they compare to the DOLOSCI. And then I think they'll understand the importance this examination holds for dentistry and the public. This examination has protected the public and will protect the public and will do so at an extremely high level and protect your citizens. Thank you so much. Apologize.
Thank you. And our next comment comes from William Pappas. Dr. Pappas, I've unmuted your mic or sent you the request to unmute your microphone anyway.
Thank you. You all on the board that practice dentistry are all successful practitioners or you wouldn't be on the board. I would just ask you to reconsider Dr. Moreau's question and maybe think in terms of those that you went to school with or those that you've seen. Did they really possess the necessary psychomotor skills. So I would think about that, not think in terms of yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I do not see any other requests for comment. Would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, please.
It is closed.
Thank you. Board Secretary, please call the roll and record the votes for this agenda item.
This is Board Secretary Felsenfeld. The motion before us is to have OPES review and report on the DLOSCI meeting state requirements for dental licensure. Burton. Ms. Burton?
Burton, yeah.
Burton, aye.
Just for clarification, this is the original motion. This is not Dr. Morrow's motion, right?
No, this is Dr. Morrow's motion. It was the only one that was made, Ms. Burton, unless someone knows more than I do, because I don't. He made a motion at the outset that the DLOSCI be considered the priority for review.
I'm going to pass on this.
You're going to abstain, okay?
Yes.
Chan.
This is Chan. You know what? I don't think he had a second, so I'll second it. But aye.
It was seconded by Dr. Levin.
Thank you.
You're saying aye. Felsenfeld, nay. Levin.
Ladin, yes.
Levin, aye. Mackenzie.
Mackenzie, yes.
Mackenzie, yes. Medina.
Medina, aye.
Medina, aye. Mendoza.
Mendoza, aye.
Mendoza, aye. Molina.
Molina, aye.
Molina, aye. Montel.
Montel, aye.
Montel, aye. Dr. Morrow.
Morrow, aye.
Morrow, aye. Olagi.
Olagi, yes.
Yes, for Olagi. Pacheco.
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, aye. Stewart.
Stewart, nay.
Stewart, nay. You.
You, nay.
You, nay. We have 3, 6, 10 ayes and 3 nays, 1 abstain. The motion passes.
Thank you. We will now move on, or I should say circle back to agenda item 24, enforcement, review of statistics and trends. I will ask Carlos Alvarez, Chief of Enforcement Field Offices, to present this agenda item.
Good morning, President Pacheco, board members, Carlos Alvarez. I'll be presenting on agenda item number 24, statistics. And the statistics that we're presenting is from July 1st, 2021 through September 30th of 2021. And currently in our complaint and compliance unit, what we call CCU, between that time period, we received 1,170 complaints during that time. The monthly average of complaints received was 390, and we received 25 more cases than the last report that from the last quarter, I should say. And the number of cases that are currently open with CCU is 969 complaints, and there we're waiting on documents from treating dentists. We're waiting on patient records from any subsequent treating dentists. So we're gathering all the records there so we can move on to a dental consultant so they can review it. And then some of these cases are being reviewed by dental consultants as well. So currently right now, the breakdown is the number of cases that we have for each month of the time periods. So 0 to 3 months, we have 664 cases. 3 to 6 months, we have 172 cases. 6 to 9 months, we have 78 cases. And 9 to 12 months, we have 46. And 1 to 2 years, we have 9 cases that are pending. So the number of cases that are closed within CCU for that time period was 636 complaints that were closed. And these cases were reviewed by dental consultants, where they formed their professional opinion that there was no violations of the Dental Practice Act. So those cases get closed. Some other cases that might get closed within CCU is what we call non-juris. We don't have any jurisdiction over it, where some of the complaints said they just strictly want a refund, and there's no other complaints, they just want a refund. And so those cases get closed. So currently right now I'll move on to the Investigative Analysis Unit, what we call IAU. The number of subsequent arrest reports, what we call SARS, and this is where licensees have been arrested by a law enforcement agency. Criminal charges have been filed or are pending. And currently right now we have 251 cases that in our IAU. And some of these SARS that we have, again, we're waiting for court documents, we're waiting for police reports, and we're also waiting on the cases to get adjudicated from the criminal courts. And we have the breakdown as well with the SARS cases that are open. 0 to 3 months, we have 68 cases. 3 to 6 months, we have 62 cases. 6 to 9 months, we have 41 cases. 9 to 12, we have 29. 1 to 2 years, we have 36. 2 to 3 years, we have 14, and 3 years plus, we have 1. And depending on the criminal charges, some of these cases, they get adjudicated within months, or again, as you can see, it might take 3 years or more for those cases to get adjudicated. But again, it depends on the criminal charges that have been filed. So once we receive all the court documents that we need in order to move forward to investigations, those cases are then closed and move forward to investigations. So for that time period, July 1st of 2021 and September 30th of 2021, we have 71 SAR cases that were closed. Again, we gathered all the appropriate documents that we need to forward to investigations. So I'll move into our enforcement units. So as of September 30th, there are 1,217 investigative cases that are open with the board, and this is including all the investigative units within the board. So the breakdown is as follows: is IAU is our non-sworn investigative unit. There's 72 cases pending. In our Orange field office, again, for a non-sworn, there's 59 cases that are being investigated or open. Our Sacramento field office, for our sworn investigators, which are peace officers, there are 126 cases. Our Orange field offices, for our sworn investigators, peace officers, there's 134 cases. And currently right now, pending assignment, we have 826 cases. So we have 826 cases that are pending assignment. And so once other cases get completed, they get closed, then we move forward and we take cases from our unassigned pending cases, we move those forward and they start getting investigated. So the number of investigated cases open with IAU are 72 cases. So as you can see, the breakdown for 1 to 2 years, they have 6 cases. I'm sorry, I moved forward. 9 to 12 months, we have 3 cases. 1 to 2 years, we have 6 cases, and 2 to 3 years, we have 60 cases, and 3 years plus, we have 3 cases that are being investigated by our IAU unit. So the number of investigated cases open in our Orange field office for non-sworn is 59 investigative cases. So with 0 to 3 months, we have 2 cases. 3 to 6 months, we have 10. Between 6 and 9 months, we have 7. 9 to 12 months, we have 5. 1 to 2 years, we have 17. 2 to 3 years, we have 18. So that's a total of 59. For our number of investigative cases open in our Sacramento field office, we have 126 cases, and this is for our sworn investigators. So 0 to 3 months, we have 17 cases. 36 months, we have 19. 6 to 9 months, we have 10. 9 to 12, we have 15. 1 to 2 years, we have 41. 2 to 3 years, we have 21. And 3 years plus, we have 3. For our cases that are open in our Orange field office for our sworn investigators, we have 134. So currently between 0 to 3 months, we have 21 cases. 36 months, we have 19. 6 to 9 months, we have 14. 9 to 12, we have 8. 1 to 2, we have 33. 2 to 3 years, we have 34. 3 to 4 years, we have 2, and 4 years, we have 3. So we have 134 cases. And some of these cases that are 3 years plus, they're either very complex, again, and I go back, I always say, like our fraudulent cases, those are complex because we have to go back and gather records from any time for billings, any time for 3 years plus, and we have to look at every individual patient file, review what was billed. So it kind of takes time with those before we move forward, and we could recommend any criminal charges or an accusation with the Attorney General's office. Number of cases that have been closed. Again, this is between July 1st and September 30th. This is between all the investigative units that I have talked about, and we closed 225 investigative cases. And we closed 46 more cases than our last report that I reported. So the number of inspections that we currently have open right now is 131 inspections that we have open. And currently right now in our Sacramento field office, we have 18 inspections, and our Orange field office is 113. And so the total is 131 cases. Number of inspection cases that have been closed. This is where our investigators, our inspectors have gone out and conducted a field inspection of the office. They actually went in, inspected the office. They either corrected all the issues, so therefore the cases were closed. So we had 38 inspection cases that were closed. So I'll move on to our administrative and disciplinary actions. As of September 30th, 2021, there was 222 open cases in our board's discipline coordination unit. And there are 3 cases in which accusations have been withdrawn and are pending issuance of a citation. We have 1 case, which is a writ that has been filed with the Superior Court, and we're waiting on a final decision on that. There is 1 case which a petition for restatement has been submitted and is awaiting a response from the licensee. And then we have 1 citation case pending in the Minister of Hearing. So what we did, we issued a citation. The licensee chose to move that citation to an administrative law judge so they could basically say that they were unhappy with the citation, and they have some mitigating factors that they want to talk about with that citation. So currently right now of accusations that we have between July 1st and 2021 and September 30th, 2021, there were 20 accusations that were filed with the Attorney General's office. Currently right now, cases that are assigned to the Attorney General's office, there are 33 cases that were transmitted to the AG. As of September 30th, 2021, there's 216 cases that are pending at the Attorney General's office. And I'll move on to citations. This were our investigators issued citations, administrative citations, and we issued 7 citations. So these 7 citations could be anywhere where they didn't report a conviction within 30 days, didn't provide patient records to the board within 15 days. So therefore, we issued citations. So currently right now with the number of probation cases that are open with our units, currently right now we have 130 probationer cases that are being monitored. There is 120 probationers that are active and that are being monitored by our staff. And we have 10 that are tolling. And those 10, what we call tolling, is they're out of state. And since they're not in California, they're not practicing, their time is not counting towards their probation. But they still have to comply with all the other orders, where they have to submit quarterly reports. They have to have check-ins with our probation monitors, but their time is not counting because, again, they're out of state. And this concludes my report on enforcement statistics.
Thank you, Mr. Alvarez. Are there any board member comments? Dr. Chan.
Morning, Carlos. This is Steve Chan.
Good morning.
This may be a general question for staff. I was invited on Tuesday to speak before the Contra Costa Dental Society about what happens when a complaint comes into the dental board and what are the processes that can lead all the way up to a disciplinary action. And the context of this was the dismantling of the peer review system in the California Dental Association. The question for staff is, there's a shift in the marketplace for questions of care, and how does the public go through seeking resolution on that? And is it appropriate, or is it of value for us to somehow track if there's going to be, or if there is an uptick of cases that get referred to the dental board?
So I'll answer the first question with the process. So the normal process is when we receive a complaint, whether it's mailed in, whether it's emailed, or it's referred from another agency, law enforcement agency. It could be from like I said, it could be from a peer review. It could be from the district attorney's office. What we do is we open up a file on that, and if there's no authorization to release records, we'll reach out to the patients to say, can you please sign the authorization to release records, so we could collect all the records and start the process to look into their complaint. And as I spoke earlier, is our dental, once where we have all of our patient records, we have all the documents that we need in order to properly investigate it, to properly review the case file, that moves forward to a dental consultant. So the dental consultants review it, they form an opinion whether violations did occur or did not occur within the Dental Practice Act. And so if those cases gets closed, we notify the patients that their case was closed. If this moves forward to investigation because the dental consultant requested it, then it moves forward. It gets sent either to our IE unit, it gets sent either to our sworn peace officers. We investigate it. Then once again, we investigate it, we obtain statements, we obtain further documentation, that moves forward to a dental expert. So then a dental expert reviews that case, and again, with their professional opinion, they'll either say, yes, there's violations of the Dental Practice Act, or there is no violations of the Dental Practice Act. If there is violations of the Dental Practice Act because of their professional opinion, those move forward to the Attorney General's office, and we file cases with the Attorney General's office. So there's a process there. And so there is, again, other peer reviews can submit complaints to the dental board. And again, if other licensees can actually make reports as well. So if a patient doesn't feel comfortable reporting another licensee, and they reach out to another licensee, another sub-treater, like I said, they can also file a complaint for the patient as well.
Thank you, Carlos. The greater question, that's exactly what I presented when I spoke to the Dental Society. The greater question is that there's a shift in the marketplace with peer review, at least by the California Dental Association, being dismantled. So that no longer exists in the marketplace. So the question is it of merit for us to monitor if there's an uptick of activity that would come to the dental board?
So we do present statistics where we do receive a notification is, and we do have the numbers where the complaints came in from consumers where the complaints came in from a society, from a peer review, if it came out through like another law enforcement agency, we do gather those statistics, and we have capability of collecting that data.
I want to get answers to question.
Thank you. Are there any other board member comments?
This is Stephen Morrow again. Carlos, you have identified in your report as of September, there are 216 cases that are pending at the Attorney General's office. Is this pretty normal, or is this more than usual, less than usual? Where are we at this time with the number of cases that are still pending?
So the 216 cases that are pending at the Attorney General's office, this is normal. And again, what we talked about, it just, as you know, some of these cases might take, some months, might take years in order to get adjudicated. And again, once it goes to the Attorney General's office, they're the ones who pretty much control the schedules of these cases moving forward to a hearing. So they control the schedules. But that is normal that for us to have, or the Attorney General's office to have, like 200 plus cases waiting to be heard.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other board member comments? Hearing none, are there any public comments? DCA moderator, please facilitate the lines for public comment.
Thank you. This is the moderator, and I've opened the Q&A panel. If anyone would like to comment on this item on the agenda, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text field, and submit that to our panelists. And our first comment comes from Dr. Bruce Witcher. Dr. Witcher, I've sent a request to unmute your microphone, and as a reminder, you will have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I went and looked at the report from December 4th of 2020. And just to Dr. Morrow's question, at that time, as of October 31st, 2020, we had a total of 112 cases pending at the AG's office. So we've got about double now. And I think that reflects just throughput of cases, and they tend to pile up at the AGs because they're somewhat overwhelmed. Looking at statistics from December 4th of 2020, I'm sorry you don't have that information in front of you. So I'll just ask you to look at page 4 of this item in materials. As of October 31st, we had 414 cases open for investigation in the IAU. And that went up to 1,217 as of this time, this year, same time this year. It's just a month earlier. And I don't think a month difference in the reporting period would make any difference. This is accounted for by the pending assignment cases. And thanks, Carlos, for pointing out how those are handled, because we have 826 cases there that weren't reported last year. So that pretty much accounts for the difference there. And it's good to know that those cases are just going to be reassigned as other cases get cleared. The other issue that I would like to call your attention to is your case aging for IAU open cases. As of October 31st, 2020, the cases that are 2 to 3 years old were 22%. As of this time, as of September 30th, 2021, that's gone up to 83%. So it's clear cases are moving through and they're aging and they're piling up in the 2 to 3 year category. Something you're probably aware of, but I just thought as an interested party, I would call that to your attention. The other thing is investigations closed. There were more investigations closed last year, about 450.
30 seconds.
As opposed to 225 at the same time this year. So that's something you might just want to be aware of. Again, this is just a year-over-year comparison from the same time last year. Thank you for taking my comments.
Thank you, and that concludes the requests at this time. Would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, please.
It is closed.
And just to let all the participants know, we will take a 45-minute lunch break after we go through all of the 25 agenda items. We will now move on to agenda item 25B. No, I'm sorry, 25A, Diversion Program Report and Statistics. I will
I'm sorry to interrupt. I thought we were going to go to break after enforcement 24, and if it's possible, I'd like to ask if we can do that.
We sure can. Then we would return back at 12:45. Will that work?
Perfect.
All right, we'll take a break. Thank you.
Thank you.